though, and we did not miss a ban this time, at least. It is going to be the Nefiri joining the ban table from blue side. You don't see that very often, but definitely terrified of Tian's Nefiri. It is also the Scion banned away over there on the side of Weibo.
I think that's so interesting when you look at what TT have been preparing for Hoya. He's been mostly a weak side player, and also just look at kind of the perpetuity of the bans on red side. They've almost entirely been like Jace, Rumble, Gwen, sometimes Nefiri, as well as you know, sometimes the Kalista. So it's interesting to me to see potentially 3 topside champions banned away here.
Crazy. That's actually crazy. The Rumble is going to join there. I think that's the one that is like, okay, that's normalized here. But now the question belays to TT what they want to grab first. If they're going to try to get something with a little bit of flexibility to throw a wrench in the works against Weibo, because a 1-2 punch is coming of some very meta champions in that next pick phase for Weibo. It is going to be the Varus coming through for 1xN. I like that with the focus we said earlier, Alk.
Yeah. Give him tools to not only play through the laning phase, but also be very impactful when we talk about being able to play at range, and also just having that flexibility in the builds. So we'll see what Weibo are going for an answer. I like the fact that we're hovering the Vi. It does mean that we're potentially opening up for either an Aurora or the Ahri. I think these two have been the most popular. And we're going to get another Xiaohu Ahri game. Let's see if he can kind of push it forward. He's only played 1 game of it this split. He has been so focused on some other mages.
And when you draft this kind of combo, it is a tried and true carry combo between Vi and Ahri. And the lockdown you can provide, the mobility you can have out of mid lane. So they need to find a way to play around each other this time around. Has been a bit of a question mark, even for 2 very legendary names there. I fully expect the Xin Zhao to be that lock in there. It is going to be the immediate trade in the first game of this Fearless best of 3. So both these champions aren't going to be available further.
I think if they really wanted to, TT can go for the Talia here. If they just want to go for something that's going to be able to match some of Ahri's early damage, an Aurora is still fine here coming out from TT, and definitely still plays into giving them strong team fights, and at least a mid laner or a mid lane champion that's going to allow them to play sides, which has been so important here in this season so far. We're actually getting a Ryze instead, so some of the onus now shifting over to TT in terms of some scaling and getting later into the game.
I like that. Hey, SeTab gonna have a little bit more resources his way. Breathe gonna swoop in and take the Ambessa away from Hoya. So at least he gets one of the comforts that he's also been willing to go for. But a lot of good backline access right now. A lot of lockdown from the side of Weibo.
Yeah, Weibo have such an explosive composition, and it's going to be about where can they find their targets and when they're going to be able to find them. They're going to have to lock them down with any 3 of these champions' ultimates. So back end of the ban phase here, it's going to be a focus of supports. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Braum taken away, or even an Alistar. I think gets a lot of value in this game here for Weibo. And TT, I mean, it looks like they're probably setting up for some kind of pair with their supports. Feather has been, I think, one of the more standout supports when we talk about teams that are here in Group Ascend. So this duo has the possibility to kind of rock up to Light and Hung early on.
Bringing back the JDG developmental squad memories here from all those years ago. But now bringing it into the fold against at least Light having been one of the biggest names of recent history here on the international stage for the LPL. The Alistar comes in, so really, really good counter engage, but also engage of his own. A good beefy body for Weibo to play around. The answer has to come through for TT, what they want to go ahead and grab to pair up with this Varus.
We're getting a couple of different champions hovered out here, but Feather is going to be locking in the Nautilus. So TT have good control around space. I think that they have strong side lanes right now. We'll see what Hoya is going to be going for. Wouldn't be surprised to see something like a Gnar come out here, or even maybe a Gragas, but we kind of see from ThunderTalk, I like the sufficiency of the solo lanes, and they still have the ability to rock into team fights. My worry now here for Weibo, what is this AD carry pick that's going to kind of be that kind of glue piece and allow for this Weibo to play, because they need to go all in. This is a pick comp through and through.
Okay. They're going to be speedy and they're going to run at you real fast. Maybe that's the tempo setting we wanted to see from Weibo into this matchup against TT, where we said on paper this should be a win. This should be a redemptionary moment for Weibo. And now they have to have that execution bar, right? That bar is a little bit higher than I'd say for TT's side of things.
We're going to need to see fast movement out of mid from Tian and Xiaohu. This 2v2 can be explosive when it comes to damage. I wouldn't be surprised, though. We've seen rises very early on. You know, you get like a flash rune prison. Suddenly you open up an area for your jungle there. So a lot to happen here between our two mid jungles in these teams.
Should be a lot of fun. We also get the Hoya Aatrox here, another tried and true classic of his. But something that I do fear is going to need to try to find access into this game, and especially find those flank angles for himself, which I think will be fewer and farther between. But between these two teams, it's a little bit of a different story. Even if on paper you see Weibo at 0-1, this is still a team full of legendary names and a team that should be vying for at least top 6, as you said, Alk, where TT... they are destined to be a middle-of-the-pack team, but they need to earn their spot there here in Group Ascend. And it's a moment to potentially put WBG on the back burner and put them down 0-2. They did end up taking their last series over that FPX squad, but it was a fight to the death there. Here, they have their backs against the wall against a should-be powerful team in Weibo. We'll see which team is living up to the test tonight, which team in Group Ascend will be able to take that win here. It should be a lot of fun. I know Weibo definitely have a lot of confidence if they're going with a draft like this. If they're going for the full dive, if they're going for the heads banging on the wall moment here for them. But we're getting into game 1 of this best of 3 Fearless, and we're headed on to the Rift.
Okay. Okay.
We got one good one.
I was really afraid that TT were not going to have any, because I remember the night before where it was LGD versus OMG and the stadium was quiet. So happy
I
to
will
see that
say,
TT is starting to gain some.
I hate to be a Debbie Downer to start the split or start the stream, but I will say there's been a distinct change in the amount of like cheering that I hear. Because, I mean, that used to be literally the biggest bright point for me as a caster in the LPLs. Like, literally every team had massive cheers. Even if it was the worst of the worst matchup, you would still hear cheers throughout the entire stadium. I think that's been a stark contrast this year where teams that don't have big names, they don't get any cheers. And that's such a crazy difference to me, honestly.
Yeah, it's pretty sad.
League's
I will agree with
changing
you on that one. Yep, we got to get more fans out to the stadiums. So
bring us there.
All right, so starting off with this game, we've got junglers starting on opposite sides of the map here, which I think really does favor what this Vi can do. Already some good trading down from 1xN and Feather to chunk out Alistar. I just really honestly don't understand why, as Sivir Alistar, we are walking up to these two.
Yeah, and this was a final pick, Sivir, as well. And 1xN had picked his Varus early. Now Hong getting very low. If there was those blight stacks, I think 1xN might be just picking him out. This is also a return to that conversation we had. It's like, okay, maybe they don't pick for the 2v2 lane and they do win through game. Well, now they're winning through this lane so far, at least early, Alk, and 1xN was looking to make a statement down here.
Yeah, and if they keep them trapped under this tower, then, I mean, in a minute and a half time, there's going to be a Xin Sao coming down and ganking you under this turret. There's a very real possibility that this is possible. I mean, even SeTab can kind of use some of his mana bar early, take an early roam down, but I think TT are feeling really, really strong about where their lanes are right now.
I do think jungle influence is going to be extremely important to kind of keep track of, but as you had mentioned earlier, that opposite side starts going to lead out to different goals for the two. Feather and 1xN, we're trying to get a little bit of a cheeky bush play. Not going to get it. A back did come through for Weibo's bot lane. So they'll try and play it safe as they can. 1xN going to slow push that one there now as well. As I still think this is a massive step for TT in the right direction of how to deal with Weibo.
Yeah, the one thing I will say is that because they don't exactly know where their bottom lane is and they're trying to deny some of these minions, they could have potentially looked for an early plate here. Now, Feather just kind of getting a little bit of vision. This is perfectly fine. I think that Weibo are recognizing that in the early game, their bottom lane is going to be suffering, but once we get those ultimates, I think the fact that they empower and enable some of the top side of Weibo will make it much easier for them to find engagements into the backline. But this TT roster gets very tanky very quickly. So I think you got to be a little bit more on the dime, and we'll be seeing if they go for any early objectives and which ones they prioritize.
Yeah, we'll have the first dragon coming up here sooner rather than later. Obviously, the grubs going to be the later aspect of that one there. Still push coming in from TT's bot lane. It will start to even out now that we've gotten to level 3 for Light. He will be able to clear. I mean, that's why you have the Sivir. That could be the potential setup for them as they get the double headbutt pulverized from Hung.
Tian's here.
1xN will get his behind out of there at least. Oh, okay, I thought they were maybe going to look for it on the Feather, but they didn't actually get him in the end. He does end up using his dredge line out. Heal was burned from 1xN.
I mean, that's a flash coming out from Hung. I think the fact that we're just trading a heal is perfectly fine in this instance, gives them the movement speed to get out. I wonder how much of this is actually a change, because we're starting to see heal come back into the fold.
True.
Less so of some of those barriers coming in for our AD carries. So I guess that's something that we'll have to keep a mental note of as we go throughout the season. But I mean, that's still, I think, a pretty good win here for TT's bot lane. And then you look kind of pulling back the camera a little bit. Again, Ryze is going to become a pretty big monster on 1 and 2 items. And then you have Hoya, who already is doing fine here and is going to have ultimate soon. TT in this early game are looking fine. Early grubs, though, need to be a big priority for ThunderTalk.
And we said Weibo need to kind of keep their head on a swivel and keep going, at least with this composition that definitely loves to be ahead. With those grubs coming up in 30 seconds, we are getting the reset from 1xN. He has the Hail of Blades, like we were talking about, kind of lane dominance earlier. See if this advantage is going to lead out to anything. It is a small one. But we'll be transitioning up towards this top side. We did just get the TP up there from Hoya, so I was curious if 1xN would actually deploy out. He does go towards this mid lane. Dragon will take a back seat. It's all about the grub party.
Yeah, so Breathe will at least pick up 1 minion wave, but he's dropping it in favor of just being here for this fight. The fact that our both solo laners have their ultimates will mean this is pretty important. We're getting a start here from ThunderTalk. Their bottom lane has a push up in top lane here for Weibo. They're going to have very easy waves of pushing this in. I think this is just one and done here for ThunderTalk.
Looks like they want to go ahead and take the scuttle. They'll stick around. They are ceding a ton of pressure to Breathe in bot side right now. They are sending Hoya down that way. A second grub goes to TT's side. Realm Warp going to come through as they want to get the play. Wind becomes lightning. They try to get in with the Crescent Guard. Level 6s are there for multiple members, and they were not for Weibo. TT strike first and strike fast. First blood for ThunderTalk.
Okay, so we're kind of using Hoya as like, hey, we're threatening you to potentially have to go for this objective. And then he's able to he gives up a couple of waves there against Breathe, and I think this is a pretty fine trade here for ThunderTalk. Again, we kind of favor some of their solo lanes as this game goes on, and now with Hung being caught out there at the beginning of that fight, they maybe get a little bit of time here to hit on this turret in top lane. So good job from ThunderTalk early on in this matchup.
I think ThunderTalk just caught Weibo sleeping a little bit there, a little bit of sleep at the wheel. Feels like the Realm Warp set up into knowing that they have the level 6 advantages feel really good for TT. And especially in this early advantage for them. Now, we will get reset on things. We'll be getting closer and closer to first items for multiple members as well. Does that change things for Weibo in the presence of aggression that we'll see from them?
If this was the old Ahri build, I definitely say that they're probably feeling a lot stronger. But with, Rod of Ages being so powerful in the mid lane right now, one item power spikes, at least for solo lanes, isn't that big. I will say the one wake up that I'm kind of looking at is now Breathe. He's the only one with an individual advantage over his lane opponent, a pretty sizable one at that, half a level up as well. So he might have that eclipse a bit earlier, and Mbessa one item wake up is very, very deadly. I think we've seen it every single time. So I want to see how Weibo are going to be including Breathe, because the best games from this team have been when Breathe actually is able to join and isn't necessarily on a side lane just split pushing.
And that's going to have to rely on Tian there on the Vi. I think he's had a pretty quiet, farm-heavy part to this early game. But the Vi needs to get active, needs to be delving out those resources and getting ganks off. So far, Tian, a jungler that is known to have constant pressure, hasn't necessarily had that against Beichuan. Now we might look at the dragon coming up here as that next objective, but we are already getting to that next spawn of grubs here in just about 2 minutes. would be very beneficial for Weibo to make sure they could fight that one and not give over 6.
They're going to try and go for a dive here. I mean, Hung is staying for a really long time on this top side. They had started making some pings, but now they're late. So this play onto SeTab needs to work. Otherwise, they lose priority in mid. They've lost the dragon. And now even see this. Feather knows something's up. He's heading over to the top side. This really needs to go well for them. Maybe if they can get a second plate, it's good. But you could see SeTab knows. He doesn't have that flash. He has Roam Warp coming up.
Yeah, this is tough. Feathers coming around the bend here. They're going to get the CC chain into the damage, into the Spirit Rush, and Tian comes away with the kill. They get Xiaohu tanking up the turret, though they need to be careful. Their health bars are not going to be very hefty. They do get the kill and get out, so dive executed.
Ooh, and instead of going for the dragon, maybe kind of trying to use the fact that for right now, Varus is going to have a lot easier time of clearing the mid wave. Instead, Beichuan, maybe expecting the fight to go a little bit longer, instead is going to deploy out on the top side. And I hope from now on, what we're going to see from ThunderTalk is we're kind of just reinforcing 1xN, and once we have push in mid, we can slowly spread our influence around the map and try to play to one side in particular.
Yo, all I'm going to say is that's a fast cow. Hung going with the boots of swiftness on the giant cow. Get a little bit of speed.
No symbiotic souls. I'm sad.
No
man.
symbiotic souls. You know, I actually do really like the symbiotic souls. Weibo are going to take this dragon, though, and get themselves set up for potential stacking objective win condition there. Yeah, Grubs will be up in about 30 seconds, so I expect an immediate redeploy up towards topside.
Okay, Xiaohu does have the Rod of Ages complete, but obviously no stacks applied quite yet. SeTab did just recall and had to TP, so, or sorry, because he died there, he doesn't actually have fully completed Rod of Ages, which I think does change, especially with the pre-mitigation healing that you have access to when you have Rod of Ages, so I wonder how much of a difference this is going to make. I think SeTab is still very strong. He has a lot of HP, but he's down almost a full level in terms of experience versus Xiaohu, which feels a little weird to say, especially with how TT, I think, have moved around the map so far.
I will say benefiting his cause, though, is the fact that Yumu's has been completed for 1xN and the Sundered Sky for Beichuan, which I think is the most important thing out of all of that. So Grub started up by TT. Really no response from Weibo. They have been late to a ton of plays, which is not a typical occurrence for a team that is led in the jungle by Tian, but already on 4 Grubs for TT. See now a little bit of preemptive damage by 1xN. Maybe a little bit of a tussle on the top side of the fight, though. There's instantly a crescent guard from Beichuan. Hoya has joined the fight. Tian uses his vault breaker to get out of there. Triple knockup. Chains of Corruption has come through. This fight's getting wild, but here comes the dive. This is what Weibo wanted from the draft. They need to find a target. They execute a target, and already they've gotten a triple kill for Xiaohu. And Weibo, they waited. They were hiding in the bush, and they pounce all of a sudden to a massive lead.
There we go. It's 4 dead immediately there, and what we've been seeing from ThunderTalk in this game is that they are willing to trade farm, willing to trade experience on the map just to make sure that they can overgroup and try to muscle Weibo out of the field. But here and then they get outplayed in some of these fights. I think, again, the solo lanes really stepping up here for Weibo and making the difference in this fight, as in this replay, I'm going to be honest, I'm just looking at the top side of this. You can't really see it in the replay, but SeTab is fighting against Ahri and then just never walks back into this play. SeTab, unfortunately, a huge passenger in this fight.
Yeah, it becomes a little bit chaotic here, and then immediately you see the instant turn onto the at least eastern portion of this fight by Weibo, and that's what their draft gives them, right? That's the power that they're drafting, the mobility they have, the dive execution that they have enables them to do, and TT played right into it.
I just see, I'm going to be honest, I literally am still getting flashbanged by what I saw from SeTab. He Realm Warps in, he kills Light, and he goes, oh crap, I can't be here. It just flashes over the wall. He gets out, but it's just, we needed to see more, I think, from them, because if maybe he Realm Warps in, I think that fight's a little bit different. But now we're in a game state, 13.5 minutes. Again, I think part of them overgrouping now and giving up a lot of these waves kind of bites them as the team that wants to scale, wants to be a little bit earlier on the clock here and try to get some of these grubs. They're now going to be down experience. It just means that level 11 is going to be a lot sooner, especially for Weibo's solo lanes. Yeah,
and I'm looking at Xiaohu, a guy that we wanted to see step up, that we said, well, there's been some real disconnections between him and Tian. You think with this veterancy, the amount of dominant splits we've seen from the Xiaohu guy, what has happened. But now we get this Ahri performance. We get him very quickly becoming a mobilizing effort for Weibo in this series to try to get them even up in series score 1-1, at least if they can take this best of 3 over TT. Now, the next setup is this dragon if Weibo want to try to fight over it and get this second dragon for themselves. But you also have to consider the factor of TT's siege potential as time goes on and the scaling factor we talked about them from draft.
Yeah, especially with 5 grubs, I just think that right now, ThunderTalk, you do not need to fight this. I would really be sad to see ThunderTalk rock up into this river brush and try to contest. Let's use some of these grubs. Let's destabilize the map, open up some spaces so that we can either get creative flanks or just control areas of the map that make it difficult for Weibo to walk in later into the game. I think once you open up really long lanes, it might cut you off from some experience, but we've already seen ThunderTalk are willing to give that up and are trying to play a much longer game here.
I like to see a little bit of reservation there. Did have some thoughts on like when they were looking pretty dominant in the 2v2 if they could like kind of propel that any farther forward. Did not find that, and now we just get to fisticuff season against Weibo, who are literally fighting SeTab on a ward in bot side, and unfortunately he will fall victim to the rampant cow, baby. Oh, he goes down. Xiaohu gets his 4th kill of the game. He's 4-0-2 and looking good on the Ahri.
And just a really well-placed ward, catching SeTab out there. And now that just means Dragon going over to Weibo with 0 repercussions on the map. I mean, SeTab, he respawns, teleport back to this wave, but you already lost the timer there. Breathe as well, starting to, or continuing to bully Hoya in the matchup now. So when are we ever going to be getting these 5 grubs actually going to be useful?
Yeah.
I think it's so difficult here.
And yeah, I think there's the
I am in the...
Sorry
Okay.
about that, everybody. We were having some technical difficulties. We should be back. No Sona casting anymore.
We got Cho'Gath W'd. It's okay. It happens. We got Mazel ulted, both of us. There's no Casual though.
There is no Casual. So we did see there a little bit of catch up. Rift Herald did go the way of TT. It is in the hands of Beichuan now. Try to get some standing gold with that at some point. Maybe even use it as a distractionary tool against the dragon stacking of Weibo, because if Weibo get one more, it will be sole point decision-making power for them. I will also point out Xiaohu has hit his 2nd item, stopped off the library, got himself a Magi's, and already has 10 chapters in it. Going to be looking to scale that one up as time goes on.
I mean, look, while we were somehow gone, somehow Weibo were able to continue to explode this lead, and now 4,000 gold up. Xiaohu is 3 minutes away from being almost 4 levels on his opponent here. I think it's a damning mistake here from ThunderTalk. The first 10 minutes, they tried to play really fast, really tried to over-group onto one side of the map to play for an objective, and instead has completely backfired on them. They'll try to make this dive happen, but instead, Weibo, they can continue to just take away these turrets, just get rid of all of the economy of ThunderTalk.
Yeah, it's really tough. And now Breathe is feeling very enabled in the side lane as well, because he himself has now developed an over 1,000 gold lead over his opponent. And it's crazy. It's like, you know, children growing up or something. All of a sudden you look back and it's been like 10 years and things have fully changed. But when you look back just a few minutes ago, TT were in this game. TT were in a driving position in this game. And their scaling factors are still there for them. But Weibo have definitely utilized their momentum well.
Yes, and this was the lead that we wanted to see coming out from Weibo, especially throughout the series. It's something we'll have to track as the series continues to go on, whether or not these games are competitive, because Weibo, it very much should be expected favorites. So got a minute and a half before this Dragon here, Mazel, and I mean, this game looks very difficult to play. Again, yes, they do have the scaling, but they also aren't even playing on the side lanes. We finally got to see them use their 5 grubs, and they barely weren't able to take this mid-tier 1.
Yeah, it's really tough. See if they can get it before that next Dragon fight here is going to be in about a minute and 10 seconds. Got second items coming up for TT's members. That Dragon will be important for them to fight over. I honestly would have loved for them to maybe keep that Rift Herald around for just a little bit longer to try to maybe distract over this Dragon fight. But speaking of those second items, we did just get Black Cleaver for Tian and Navori Quick Blades there for Light. And Light is going to be kind of unsung hero in a lot of these fights, a lot of this clear here going forward now that he's getting a couple items under his belt.
Yeah, especially now that he has the Navori Flicker Blades, like he just one-shots every minion wave. And if he gets time in a fight, he just takes over, right? So him and the rest of Weibo, I love what we've gotten from them in this pick composition with the fact that they have 3 different champions that can immediately snap engage and find an angle for them. Oh my god, what XN!
Speaking
Big respect.
of, he's shook, bro. He is shook. He knows what's coming if he's just over his steps.
I was going to say, if we're sitting in that situation, there's a Vi that queues forward on you and there's already a Sivir, I'm flashing too, bro. I respect the play coming out from 1xN.
He just knows what could follow there. And it's very tried and true from the draft. Like Weibo, they put their cards on the table, and they are just playing the hand they were dealt. As TT trying to get a little bit of preemptive push in mid lane before that Dragon does end up getting started. Looks like Hoya might be in a little bit of trouble here. Gets fully dashed onto, has to pot the World Ender and his flash out. And now TT are left with no front line. They're left with everything going to hell in a handbasket. And Weibo, they make it look too damn easy, Alk. There ain't nothing TT can do about this one. They are just being ground into dust.
And that is what I'm Thunder talking about, boys. This was the series that we were looking forward to. Weibo, make it look easy, honestly. Just walking around the map, they have so much damage. It's going to be 20 pages here in the Magi's, and under no threat are Weibo of potentially losing this game from this position right now. They'll grab the Dragon, which puts them at soul point here. They already have an overwhelming advantage. Xiaohu is going to be in about a minute's time. He already has 10 stacks of the Rod of Ages. He's going to be 4 levels over this Rise. Not what we wanted to see coming in from SeTab. I just don't get it. I mean, Hoya's like trying to like walk in, but now he doesn't have E. Yeah, he just has to give this up.
Yeah, that's just tough. I mean, you can only go with what information you have available to you, and he did not know that he was being watched the entire time by Breathe in the Bush. And then this is what the composition does best, is when you are picked apart, when you're all head for the hills, they will absolutely eviscerate you.
Rest in peace. Maybe the death of ThunderTalk and lane swaps was correctly stated instead of overstated. So, man, it sucks to see, especially for ThunderTalk, but again, for Weibo, I think in the matchups we were kind of talking about, like, this should look good for them. Ari was able to do something. Now Breathe does have the ultimate coming up.
Oh, he's going to try to buy time. There's a TP coming in. Oh, God, they've overcommitted. Oh, my God. What did I just watch? My poor eyes. That was a massive shutdown going the way of TT. Weibo are going to try to get the Atacon, I guess, on the other side of things, but your solo lanes are gone.
I think that was maybe repayment for what happened in the TES series, because a very similar play happened where they're playing, Xiaohu's playing the Rise, he dies, Breathe TPs, and immediately has to use his flash to not instantly die to TES. Yeah. So he felt like, hey, he did me a solid, I'll go ahead and TP, and this time I will die. And, you know, maybe they're throwing TT a bone there. It's the 2 kills plus the shutdowns and the turret there. A lot of gold going over to ThunderTalk, but now there's an Otacon here for the side of Weibo. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be doing too well.
56 roses to 6, by the way, for Weibo's advantage there. But
that means SeTab's XP is going to be even worse than between these two.
It's going to be tough. You know what I'll give Xiaohu? He wanted the numbers to match. I mean, you know, I'm a numbers guy, so
10 and 10
I'm
on
right
the Rod of
there with
Ages
him.
and the book.
Yep.
Good one, man.
Yep.
Good.
Yeah, see? You were catching what I was putting down.
Yeah.
See what I was talking But it is now a situation where TT are a little bit closer in the lead than they were. Maybe now looking for even more. Xiaohu will have to pop that Spirit Rush. Gets the depth charge popped on him. TP coming in now from Breathe. Hung getting a little bit low there. Did have to pop that Unbreakable. TT looking like they have some fighting efforts here, and we're starting to get to the point where we have to talk about those item completions and maybe getting to that precipice for TT at some point in the future.
I am looking at these 3 item spikes coming in for 1xN and for SeTab. Looking like he's going for the Zonias for this Rise, getting closer and closer to that. And Weibo, a couple of mistakes, you know, some fumbling here from them slows down the game and allows for the side of ThunderTalk to farm. My issue is in 2 minutes time, at the very least, we're going to have a soul point fight. And with this Baron, if ThunderTalk ever get picked out on a side lane, which can be very easy with Sivir and this Ahri, I think you have to start wondering if Weibo or how strongly Weibo can kind of end this game. How quickly can they get it done? Because like we were saying, this game goes late. There's a very high likely potential that SeTab on this Rise can take over.
Oh, they knew Xiaohu was there. The charm going to connect. Xiaohu will not be caught. I'm also looking at this dive team. You know what benefits a dive team? A bunch of movement speed after you use your ultimates. It would be really nice to have that Cloud Soul for Weibo's side of things for sure. So maybe leaning on that side of the map even more so as we see that redeploy already coming through. Looks like Light will try to get back, get his 3rd item here. So Sivir, she's hit the break point now under Light's control with that IE completed. And they're coming right out to fight for this Dragon setup.
I think it's a huge problem now for ThunderTalk. Usually when we're talking about itemization, especially for AD carries or AD champions in general, the lethality option gives you more upfront damage and is typically cheaper, but lacks some of the scaling or higher numbers.
1xN.
Oh, 1xN, you're probably flashing here, brother.
Oh, yeah, unfortunately you can't get away from the cease and desist like that, even with the extra spell shield there. And now they'll just lose mid lane big time. I mean, they'll lose the inhib. Luckily, they'll be able to defend a little bit more from that, but they're trying to get some side lane pressure up in the top side with SeTab.
Well, that was the pick that we were kind of wondering, like, if they can control this, if Weibo find a pick that should open them up for the Dragon. They're trying to see if ThunderTalk are going to very blindly walk into their jungle.
This is just solo queue status, bro.
I think this is fine. Look at SeTab top lane. He's just hitting a tier 2. He's getting gold for his team.
Oh, Dredge line does connect. Okay, here comes Weibo. They're overextending for sure. Dragon is coming up now. They should all turn back. Tier 2 did go the way of SeTab, so that'll be some decent gold. That should be his 3rd item coming up here. TP, I don't think is available. Okay, it is available. Maybe they look to fight this, but the Dragon is already going their way. So it is Weibo going to claim that Cloud Soul and benefit the dive comp that they have.
I wonder if they're going to try and get cheeky. We haven't, I think, seen this year any particularly creative uses of Rise Ultimate. But you can see it. SeTab, 1xN, and Feather are all standing next to each other trying to see
this
if they
is
can
so
find
bad. Like, this is so hard. You're literally begging to get pulled apart at the seams. They have the tools to run you down, TT. They've been spread apart. Maybe they can actually get Hung here. The Unbreakable Will's there. 1xN is tapping here as Hung has fallen. So now we're evened up. Realm Warp going to come through, but not utilized. Xiaohu using a defensive Spirit Rush there. We do lose both frontline supports, and Baron started up by TT. They're scaling, and maybe they finally arrived. 3 items there for both big carries, and they're forcing the hand of Weibo and Breathe. Looking for a little bit of preemptive damage onto Hoya. Beichuan still in the pit. Tian forced to flash out of the fight now. Baron down to about half health. Xiaohu looking for it. Public execution goes in on Beichuan. Beichuan's already down. Breathe is rampant on the back line, and he is going off on the Mbessa. Meanwhile, Xiaohu is ringing up the rear with Light, and the bounce off the ward will get the kill for Light himself.
look at how close this game is. They're not going to be able to get the Baron. They're looking for the end here. Long death timers for ThunderTalk.
Double TPs.
It's 25 before the next member. It's just Feather by himself. Weibo are going to look to try to end game 1.
Yeah, look at the faces of TT. They know doom is a reality here in game number 1. They gave up a fight. They kept it a little close in the end. But in the end, Weibo were just stronger. 29 minutes in, that will be the breaking point for TT in game number 1. And Weibo will move up to match point on their attempt of a potential first series win of the Group Ascend stage. They looked damn good doing it too, Alk.
Yeah, I'm kind of happy to get that kind of game from them. Yes, it wasn't perfect, but I'm glad that we got to see Weibo take that game in pretty confident fashion. We got to see Xiaohu still be a big driver for this team alongside Tian, and I'll be honest, again, when these solo laners are on point, we actually get to see some of the strengths of this Weibo roster with Breathe and Xiaohu.
Yeah, some moments you want back for sure, but there's some really good moments there, especially from Xiaohu on the RE. But it's why you grab this kind of composition for Weibo. You know the prowess that these two guys, Breathe and Xiaohu, have in terms of their kind of target selection in fights and the direction they bring to team fights. And it was on display fully there. I love that we had a very tried and true composition from Weibo, and they were able to rise that executional standard. Even if the 2v2 in bot lane was a little bit iffy, even if there were some moments where maybe some throwing was happening for sure, it is still a rounding of the corner for them and a very dominant victory over a TT team that you have to make sure you put down. Kind of like the double tap meme from Zombieland, because they will always find a way to come back in a series.
They cannot allow them to get any ground in this game. And I'm glad that they kind of picked on, I think, some of the weaker tendencies of ThunderTalk over grouping. We didn't see them actually use the 5 grubs very often. And SeTab, this has consistently been an issue for this team, is when he's in a side lane, he goes over for a little too long, or unfortunately in that time when we saw him in bot lane, he was on a ward, he gets caught out, and it makes the game so much harder for ThunderTalk to play. So really good job from Weibo, and we need to see them close out as we get further into the series.
Yeah, definitely want to see more cleanliness from them, but there's also some big picks taken off the table now that we've gotten our first game out of the way on this best of 3 fearless setup. A lot of jungle priorities going to shift around. Top lane priorities going to shift around a little bit as well, and see exactly what those changes are going to be. But did you have some bright points for TT in any regard in this first one?
Again, I think Feather and 1xN in the first 15 minutes looked really good. The problem is that, especially for TT, they do this thing in almost all of their games where when they're behind, they kind of walk into areas of the map and they separate from each other instead of staying as stronger cores, as like 3 or 4 members, and then they walk into one part of the jungle and die instantly. We saw it here in this game. We saw it in BLG as well. I think they kind of spread out a little too thin, and unfortunately it makes it very difficult for them to play. So great job from 1xN. We need to see more from ThunderTalk. The rest of this crew really needs to step it up if they want any chances here in Group Ascend.
As soon as I saw like all 5 members spread from like tier 2 turret on their side all the way to the Baron pit, I'm like, this is just a recipe for disaster. Like, they literally have every tool to just pick out whoever they see first and foremost, and a lot of space given there. So is that definitely something TT are gonna re-up on and try to figure out how to kind of tackle their compositional strength there as well. They will more than likely be back on blue side again, so try to keep the priority there for themselves. But you can see here, it's just a Weibo party, and TT weren't invited.
Oh, they were invited. They just got put in the corner. They were like, hey, guys, Pinata. Hey, Pinata's arrived. Look, there's gold coming out of this thing.
There's gold.
We can just keep whacking at it. This is great.
I'm going to need the TT logo in the form of Pinata now, please.
That's so mean. Don't do that. Perfect. Don't do that to 1xN. 1xN was on our all-pro list in spring.
You're the one that did it.
For Split 1. Yeah, but
this feels bad. This feels bad. Because there's just literally no way, even if you buy that spell shield, like, you can't escape Vi because of the 2-part combo of that ability.
I just also don't understand why as CT we're trying to force a Baron here. I mean, I can understand maybe you're like, wow, we're losing the game. We've got to force the Baron. But, like, our ultimates are certainly more important. and kind of just feels a little bad to see, especially with the fact that Breathe just finding that ultimate, and then obviously, like we saw, the end of that fight, bit of a heartbreaker.
Yeah. Who do you think is MVP then?
I kind of want it to be Xiaohu. I think he played this game really, really well. Yeah. I am probably expecting for it to be Breathe because he won the lane matchup. I think he was really playing the map very well. And then his Mbessa and like all of these fights just looked incredibly clean.
You might have sold me on that. I was definitely in the Xiaohu boat before you gave me a little bit of dose of reality of what actually happened. I still think there was a lot of influence from both solo laners, and that gives me a lot of promise for this Weibo team. Not necessarily something we got to see consistently from them beforehand in their last series as well. So I guess we'll see who gets it. I do think it has to be between the two. If anybody else gets it, I'll be scratching my head a little bit for sure.
Yep.
We're literally rioting on screen. But I do wonder if there's any give for Tian in that regard in terms of what he was trying to set up for the team and like kind of the access he had with the season assists and things along those lines. But the shock value definitely has to go to one of these solo laners, and it will of course be the Tiger King of Spring. It is Xiaohu himself getting an MVP.
Exciting stuff, and especially for Xiaohu, who always has looked good at the very beginning of the year. You know, in history, it was because obviously Uzi on his roster was taking a break until Lunar New Year. So I think I'm kind of expecting to see a ramp up from Weibo in the same way that we kind of expect a team like JDG to eventually reach their form.
Well, the hope is there for Weibo now that they look dominant in this series. We'll see if they can close it out. Before we go anywhere, though, we have to give an extreme and extremely grateful, at least, shout out to our coffee members and YouTube subscribers who help level the show up on a daily basis. We wouldn't be here without you. I got the little thank you from Alk as well. A lot of the additional payments go to improving the show, this awesome graphics package that we have here. Shout out to Chris Sunga. But also being able to pay the talent for their volunteer moments, a lot of the love given to them and our content creators as well, that we'll have more interviews coming up here with shortly. Subscribe to our coffee, linked in chat, to unlock perks like early access to those interviews and maybe even drop in some of your own questions to some of the players in the LPL. But that's it for game number 1 of this best of 3. We'll see if TT can come back.